Today I'm with Zoe Clews, who's a hypnotherapist who works on Harley Street at Zoe Clews and Associates, and she's going to talk to me about hypnotherapy because she treats all kinds of conditions with hypnotherapy, which I find absolutely fascinating, and it's something that I haven't really explored myself. And I think a lot of us, if you're anything like me, you probably think of hypnotherapy like a magic show, and there's a man on a stage and he calls people up and he gets them to do unspeakable things and then they can't remember afterwards. So I think a lot of us have that idea of hypnotherapy. And
they do.
Is that what you do?
Well, I did train in stage hypnosis as well, actually. Because I'm so interested in hypnosis generally. I wanted to know all about it, but I don't use it here. But yeah, hypnosis is a really interesting topic. There's lots of misconceptions about it. People are worried they can't be hypnotised, or they're worried they're going to get stuck in a hypnotic state. But the mind's like an elastic band. So in hypnosis, say you sort of stretch it out, it will always return back to the place where it was originally.
I think that would scare me, actually.
Right.
I think I would worry about where I was going and would I be able to get out of it.
Well, I think that's one of the most important thing when you're working with them is for them to feel safe. So you'd spend quite a bit of time explaining what the process is. So when I do a session, the first session is 2 hours. We've got that time, so that the person feels safe enough. And because you're working with somebody's mind, it's an intimate thing, obviously, and they need to know that their mind is in safe hands.
Absolutely.
And what hypnosis is really, it's a form of it's just a way of communicating with someone's subconscious. So we have our conscious mind, and we have our subconscious, and our conscious mind is a very different animal to our subconscious. So our conscious mind it understands linear time, it's logical, it's rational, and then we've got our subconscious, which is it's our inner protector. It will always prioritise you being safe over being happy. My job is to let your subconscious know you can be both.
Right.
So we see that manifesting in the way somebody might go through something when they're small, they might have a shock about something, and their subconscious mind goes into a sort of hypervigilant state to continue protecting that person from that thing, even though it's horrible. Right. So nearly all issues can be traced back to when they're smaller. So a phobia, for example, is somebody's afraid of flying, they had a bad flight, or they learnt it from their mother or father. Do you see what I mean? Or one of their caregivers.
Can you learn a phobia?
Yes, phobias are only one of two things. It's either a direct experience or it's learned. So I see a lot of people, and one of my first questions in the when I'm doing the history take is, do you have any phobias? And nearly everyone says spiders.
I know, a lot of people have spiders. It's interesting because my mother was, growing up, she was extremely claustrophobic.
Yes.
And I'm claustrophobic,
yeah,
and I wasn't as a little girl, and she wouldn't go in a lift, and I would. But now, as I'm getting older, I really don't like lifts, and I will literally walk up 10 flights of stairs, do anything to avoid a lift. And so, do you think I learned that from her?
Yes, and often, this is the thing with phobias, they don't often kick in until a lot later on. So people come and see me, and they'll talk about something, they've got a phobia of something, and they talk about, they had an experience when they were 5 years old or something. And but this phobia hadn't really started to build until their late 30s or even later on in life. When I point out the correlation between the two, they said, but that happened such a long time ago. And I said, well, there's no time in your subconscious. So this is the other thing about it, is your inner protector. It doesn't understand linear time. So anything if you've especially been through a trauma, people always, again, they say the same thing, that happened 20 years ago. And I said, but not in your subconscious. It doesn't know, it thinks it's still going on now. So that's why it works so hard to protect you. Most issues are due to experiences that haven't been processed. So a shock or just an adverse experience, just something negative happening or unwanted,
Yeah.
And we were all traumatized, fairly easy, especially as children. If you think about what trauma is, it's an unwanted, unexpected experience. So it's something that happened.
And I suppose when you're very young, you don't know how to process it or make sense of it. So it just remains
locked in a system
for the rest of your life. I would imagine. Say something happens to you when you were 5, I would imagine you remain locked in the reaction of a 5-year-old. Yes. Until you deal with it.
Yes, and sometimes it's quite specific. So if somebody's gone through a lot of trauma, then their whole system can stay locked in that trauma state of either fight or flight or sort of freeze or form. And but for some, and then that can affect everything. So it's really insidious. They've gone through a lot. It can affect everything in their life: relationships, money, home, work, all of these things. But if we're looking at something like a phobia, for example, I don't know. Let's imagine as a kid, someone was riding along their bike and a pigeon flew into their head. So then
They might have a pigeon phobia.
Yeah, they have a bird phobia. But so they have this thing that sits in their subconscious, but it only gets triggered when they see a bird.
Right.
So do you see what I mean? So it's going to be very specific, or it can be very broad.
And is that what people mostly come to you for, is phobias?
Well, people come for all sorts of things. So, you know, as a hypnotist, hypnotherapist, I'm a consummate generalist in that I treat pretty much everything. However, I specialise in anxiety, depression, trauma, self-esteem, confidence. Those are the things I really, really love working with.
Right.
I've got a team, so there's other hypnotherapists on my team. So
Right.
I've got a lovely guy called Francis, and he specialises in phobias, public speaking, presentation.
Right.
I've got an addiction guy. I've got a relationship hypnotherapist. So we've all sort of
Right.
gravitated
So you've all got your
our own little niches,
speciality.
but within the team. Yes.
How absolutely fascinating. And so how does it work? I mean, is it like stage hypnotherapy? Do you put somebody out and they've got no recollection of it, or
No,
how does it work?
I mean, the thing is, in a way, hypnosis is hypnosis. So kind of, you know, people talk about stage hypnosis and hypnotherapy as if they're different things, but hypnosis is always the same thing. It's basically subconscious dominance. So what we're doing is looking to communicate with your subconscious.
Right.
It's not really, because people get very hung up, oh, I need to be able to relax. And my job was only seeing people that could relax. I wouldn't have a business, you know, especially in London, especially in these times. So it's more that, you know, if someone has a willingness to change something, that's all they need. They don't have to believe in hypnosis. I get people turning up really cynical, thinking this is ridiculous, this is last.
And yet they've made the appointment.
Yeah, or their wife has made it for them or something like that. Well, or they just think, well, it's worth a try, because they're really desperate to let go of something. So like, oh God, I'll try hypnosis.
So do you relax them? Do you do breathing exercises? And so they're awake? Are they still sort of awake?
Yeah, so we spend about sort of half an hour to 45 minutes talking, sometimes an hour, depending on what's going on. Lay down. I'm just talking to their subconscious. So basically, you can do really quick ways.
And can they hear you? And do they remember
it? Yeah, they can hear me.
afterwards?
Yeah, so it's kind of different depending on what we're doing. So think about this. Here's our subconscious. Here's your conscious. In hypnosis, all you really need is your subconscious to be active. So sometimes the conscious mind can switch off completely, which is when they can't remember anything. So that might happen if we're doing something like a smoking session where it's just me talking.
Right.
However, if we're doing something to resolve trauma or resolve a wound, then they will be talking back to me. So they'll remember those bits. Do you see what I mean? Right. And then, so it's different. Every sort of session is different. But really what it is, it's less about being in some sort of really deep trance. It's more about accessing a deeper part of yourself.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where you make the changes.
You see, I think that would slightly worry me.
You
know, going that deep. I think I'd be a little wary. But I suppose that's part of your process.
Yeah, it is, and it's normal. So you know, somebody might come and say they come for, they keep choosing an unhelpful type of partner, right? Right. So they keep doing that. And the roots of it.
I didn't know you could do hypnosis for that.
Yes, you can. Yes, that's
brilliant.
So we have a hypnotherapist that looks after the relationship stuff, and I've got 2 coaches in my books that deal with relationships, and they're all really busy. You know, relationships are a big one. Relationships.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and everything sex and love based is always really busy. Yeah,
really?
yeah. Because there's lots of stuff that comes up right in those areas. But yeah, say somebody comes in, they keep choosing a certain type, or keep going out with their ex-boyfriend with a wig on, you know. Or their dad, you know, that sort of thing. So, you know, the roots of it in childhood. So we spend quite a long time talking, and during that time I get an idea of where these things might be coming on. It might be things that their father said to them, or their mother said to them when you're young. And then what we're doing is looking to, and then we just spend quite a long time relaxing somebody. We keep reminding them that it's safe, and then we're just working with looking at healing those beliefs that they came to when they're small. I mean, a lot of the time it's almost like a very young part of yourself is choosing the partner. We have, you know, you've already heard about the inner child. Yes, often we don't want our inner child in charge of our finances, our romances, much really, apart from maybe creativity. But you know, a lot of the time we've got these wounded inner children that are running the show. So a lot of my work is kind of healing and reintegrating them with clients, and that really makes a difference. It's such a game changer in a child work.
And did I read that hypnotherapy can help with pain management?
Yes, so I have Paul Gibson, who is my he sort of does medical hypnotherapy. He works with addiction, sports performance, and he works with pain. Wow. So he's really great with the pain stuff, because the other thing that can happen as well is that you can have a lot of, you know, especially if there's been a trauma around the accident, so you might have had done the necessarily, you know, medical interventions or the necessarily physio or work, but if there's a big emotional charge still attached to the injury, then it can cause the pain to sort of last for much longer than it.
Yeah,
because there's almost like a holding on to it from the subconscious mind.
Right.
So it can really help alleviate things, as well as you can make suggestions to the subconscious. Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. And so you specialise in anxiety. Anxiety, depression, and self-esteem.
Yeah, all of these things. They're all bedfellows, really. You know?
Yes.
They all work together. They're all linked. If someone's, you know, a lot of time people can have anxiety issues, and there's often self-esteem issues attached, or and if you've got self-esteem issues, there will undoubtedly be anxiety issues.
And is hypnotherapy very effective for things like this?
Honestly, I think hypnotherapy is the best thing for anxiety. Yeah, age of anxiety, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's been a bit difficult the last few years, and I think it's got a lot worse. So I've been doing quite a bit on anxiety here, and I can see from the reaction that there's a lot of it out there. So that's really good to know that hypnotherapy is another avenue that one can take to help with anxiety.
Because we're looking for, because the thing is as well, I was talking to you about it earlier, but you know, one of the worst symptoms about anxiety is the belief, I'm going to be like this forever. So people think, oh, that's me broken. I'm always going to feel like this. I'm never going to be able to feel joy again. You know, my anxiety clients get understandably very obsessed with whether they're ever going to feel happy again.
Yeah.
And what I always say is, don't search for happiness at the moment. Let's look for relief. We need to find you relief. And anxiety often comes up when we're too full, too much has gone on.
Yes.
All those old things from the past that are subconsciously our subconscious is trying to shout at us and get our attention, say something to be resolved. Or it's a response, it's feedback from our own system. This situation is no good for you.
Yes.
It might be a situation at work, it might be a situation with the partner, it might be something else. Sometimes it can be your environment, sometimes it's a response. So it's a few things, anxiety. So it's about working out what's what and what's where. And
so instead of your conscious mind walking into a room with a therapist, your subconscious mind is walking into a room with a therapist.
Well, we're looking at and we're working with your conscious and your subconscious. But we're looking at the subconscious driver, because remember, your subconscious mind, it will prioritise you being safe over being happy. So it often gets anxious because it's trying to protect you. So it sets the anxiety bar high. So it thinks you need to be super hyper vigilant all the time.
Yes.
And you can't switch off.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. Absolutely fascinating. Well, I hope that you'll come back and talk to me again. You know, in more depth about all that and how people can move forward with anxiety and stress. So that would be lovely. Thank you. Thanks.